Welcome to another edition of Indiepocalypse Radio. I'm your host, Andrew, the creator, editor, curator, etc., of Indiepocalypse Radio. Yes, the music is sick. I never interact with the chat, but I'm going to say this. I host this thing so I can play sick music that I like. So I can trick people into be like, what if I also listen to Drinking Boys and Girls Choir? And I think you should. It's great if you're. I also, if you like punk music, I often like punk music. I like music that's loud and fast, and sometimes mad about something, or sometimes it wants to say anyway. I actually usually by the time when I say anyway, you usually have to explain myself. But I explain myself. Indiepocalypse, if you don't know what it is of course the monthly ongoing exploration of underground game. I'm turning around to underground. I think I'm going to use underground a bit more. Sounds cool.
It's better than like indie or something.
Yes. Indie is useless nonsense of a word.
So now you're underground apocalypse.
Yes. No, I will still use Indiepocalypse, but to just call them indie games is very pointless. To use an American turn of phrase, it's a nothing burger of a word. It like too much of it describes people who have millions of dollars, and I in my life have never had millions of dollars and never will have millions of dollars that you could then invest in other people. Like, how much money is that? How do you have? How does a
How do
human
you make
being
money?
possess that much money? Like, how do you come into possessions of millions of dollars? Anyway, that all said, we are here. You heard a little of them previously. We are here with our first guest who made. This is a show where I talk to people who are usually in Indiepocalypse, and sometimes they're not. Sometimes we're just game people. Sometimes we're just people I want to talk to. This is like I'm feeling 113 episodes. I'm hitting my stride for what this show is. I think I came the
Oh
closest.
wow! I just realized there's been 113 episodes of this.
Yes.
Wow.
In less than a week, there's going to be 42 issues of Indiepocalypse. And the voice you heard was from issue 3 of Indiepocalypse.
Yeah, that was early.
Yes, very early with Saccharine Playground. It's Adrian Dittrich. Adrian, how are you doing today?
Hello, I'm doing fine.
Perfect. Technically, it's going to be the 44th issue because there's 2 bonus issues, but it's the 42nd sequential issue.
Yeah.
So, speaking of issue 3, I want you to cast your mind back 39 months.
Wow.
Yes, about over 3 years ago. Shit, over 3 years, right? Yes.
That was a long time ago. Yeah.
Yes. I want you to cast your mind back over 3 years ago. And I got to know, how'd you hear about Indiepocalypse?
Well, I can't remember. I think mostly that I was in a jam for that one for Saccharine Playground,
Yeah.
and I think someone just suggested it. I'm not even sure actually. Like
Yeah,
I
no.
cannot remember how we got in contact.
That is, I would not expect you to remember. It was a very, that's a very long time ago. That is, a lot has changed in 3 years. you know, the beginning of 3 years was a very, like, we were, issue 3 of Indiepocalypse. We were knee deep in learning all about the novel coronavirus. And
Oh yeah, that.
that won't last very long, maybe. Let's sanitize and wash our hands. So much for that. But
Lots of time to make games while at home.
yeah, it's a very issue 3 is really weird. Like it got a lot of people like really like off the bat. It kind of shows, I guess. Not that these people were not accomplished developers beyond, before Indiepocalypse, but it's like, oh, it's weird to see now 3 years later, Damien Crawford with a published game and like, Remy with Pancake is in probably like
Oh
almost a
yeah,
year into its
Pancake
own.
Delicia. I remember that when it
Yeah,
started.
that itself is probably almost into a year, right?
Yeah.
But uh, but you we'll talk about something that you've been doing in a second. But first, let's for people who don't know, what is Saccharine Playground?
So Saccharine Playground is a game I made in collaboration with artist and musician June Flower. And we basically it's about cute dolls doing horrible things. Your main character is basically trying to like give away all his friends' sins to the local god. It's a very oppressive game, but with very cute characters, and you lots of them interact in a funny way. Like you can use each character has a little power you can use, and it's sort of a Metroidvania. Like there's a kind of big world to explore, but it kind of loops around, and you need to figure out how to best locate your friends' sins and discover them, uncover them, and
Yeah,
then the claw takes them away.
right, right, yes. It's yeah, that it feels like we're bumping up against the language that's difficult to talk about games because Metroidvania is like by sort of your own mission. They're not the best way to describe it, but it's also like the language for describing these
Yeah.
sorts of like exploration kind of because you wouldn't call it
Yeah,
open
like
world,
otherwise you need to say like it's an exploration platformer with unlockable power-ups and
right?
unlockable locations, and that's way too long. So just Metroidvania is
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. It's we need. I think we need more aggressive subgenre in games.
Yeah,
There's not enough. I need a
a
million like
saccharine playground like.
yes, exactly. We need like a million like little, and we need to stop naming them after games. That is my own personal cross to bear. Like I'm sick of naming genres after games. Uh, I want to name them after feelings or vibes or even naming them after gameplay is too much for me. Uh, but speaking about gameplay and even the idea of good gameplay is maybe a little overrated to some extent. Because I wanted to ask you about uh, the most famous, perhaps, four-letter acronym game-making
Yeah, you're
jam,
gonna talk about the GBTK
the
jam, is it?
GBTK, the Game Breakers
Yeah,
toolkit.
that's my life now. I'm currently playing a lot of bad games. So for those who don't know, GBTK is the acronym of Game Breakers Toolkit Jam, where the goal is to make the worst possible game, and it's amazing. Like we have truly amazing works of art stemming from that game. Like
Yeah,
really, when I think indie games, I think about like GBTK. I think about uh, janky games, which are still like I'd say not all of them, but a bunch of them are very fun to play despite being made purposefully bad.
right. Yeah, I think we um, put too much effort on games playing well, which is
Yeah,
a
we put
silly
too
thing to
much
say.
budget into games,
Yeah.
like too much effort. Like to be honest, like one of my most like successful games in terms of money made. It was actually made for GPTK. Like it's called Endless Adventuring, and I think I earned around $800 from it.
Oh,
Even
that's
though it was like it was made bad on purpose, it actually is the game which got me the most money.
yeah. That's that is a like see that, but that's the thing. I think we need making things good on purpose. Kind of is how you get people taking
Also,
a
if you want to know how I made those $800, it's because I submitted it to a jam called "I Want Shorter Games with Bad Graphics and Where the Developers Are Paid More,"
yes.
hosted by I think Damien Crawford, or something.
I
Not
believe so.
sure any. Yeah,
Yeah. I think
which I
I
highly recommend.
yes, I think I was also in that one because one
Yeah,
of these
it's
times
great.
I was like I want some money too.
Exactly.
I Oh wait, look at all these. See, the fun thing about doing this for so long is I clicked on it and I'm like, I know all these. I know all these people.
Yeah.
These are all. I mean, 90% of them are also like, oh, these are all people in Indiepocalypse too.
Of course.
Uh,
But yeah, if you look at like bad games with worse graphics where the developers are paid more, like those are the kinds of games I want to play personally,
yeah.
and I don't really care for AAA games anymore. Like
No.
except the usual Zelda, maybe I still play Zelda even though I have no time for it.
Right. Yes, that's the other thing. It's like time too. It's a
Yeah,
real. You kind of underestimate how much of it you have, but there is a.
yeah. Shorter games means you can play them with less time. You actually have to, I don't know, work.
Right. Yeah. Like say if you have to work and then also you work on
Imagine working.
a secondary. You have a real paying job, then you have the independent job of an independent artist, and then you have to do things like eat and
Yeah,
sleep, and
no time to play games when you do
right,
one.
right. Yeah, no, I've increasingly realized that I have a very short window to play games, and
Hmm.
I'm like gotta find in like. Then also that assumes that my whole like leisure time is spent playing games. What if I want to watch a movie?
No, it's not. Like I also play board games. I also go outside.
Oh
Like
yeah,
exercising is important.
yes, yes. I recently,
Travel. Like there's a bunch of stuff you can do other than playing games.
yeah.
I
There's a
have to.
whole there's how many years before of human existence before they even invented games. What were they doing? What were they doing then?
Yeah, probably being bored.
They weren't just sitting in their house waiting for video games to be invented. Although I suppose probably some people were. They were like, oh, I wish I
I mean, they were
could.
probably doing stuff like telling each other stories and
Yes,
writing stuff, maybe, which is sort of the same. Like it achieves a similar thing to video games.
yeah. That's and I feel like that's coming. I talk about this show a lot, but that is becoming more common where it's becoming more accessible to make games. We're getting closer to that games as sharing experiences and less like games as products.
Yeah, it is easier now. Like, there's a bunch of stuff. Like, even though I think it's a horrible platform, there's Roblox, which still makes it really easy for anyone of any age to make multiplayer games. Like, it's never been more easy.
Yeah,
There's a bunch of options now for young game devs.
yeah, yeah. And then and those can just as easily be, intros to, hey, I'm making like a more robust engine that I don't have to, that I own the results of. But there are
Mm.
like all these like different toolkits and engines and just like approaches. And I think that's why having something like a counterpoint of like GBTK is good for people, because I think it's too easy if you're starting out to get caught up in hustle culture.
Yeah, if you're trying to get better and better and just
Right,
make the best thing, sometimes you end up not making anything at all because you're too caught up in trying to make the best thing. You just don't do anything.
right, right.
I've actually known people who their first game was a GPTK game because otherwise they would never finish their main, the big dream project you've been working on for a few years, but you're never releasing that one. It takes
Right,
actual effort.
because it has to be perfect. You have to release at the
Yeah,
right time. You have to have all the wish lists. You have to have, because
marketing.
yeah, because there's this. We're in this moment. I mean, I think that's always existed to some extent, but especially it feels maybe amplified that like if you're not successful out the gate, just forget about it.
Yeah. Well, with GPTK, you just take a few days. Maybe
Yeah,
you take the entire week and just make something, release it. It's gonna be shit, but that's the point.
yeah. I think we need to encourage more people. That it is very close to the few times I've actually dipped into game making again. I've referred to it as like sketching, and I think GBTK is a good way to like get people to sketch games. Like
Yeah.
sometimes the hands you drew all day look like shit, but you drew them.
But
So
if you draw them for GBTK, they're fine, you
right,
know.
right. Sometimes your game doesn't work really, but you made it.
Yeah, I think honestly, my opinion is that making a game and releasing it is the important part.
Yeah,
Even if it's a small game, even if it's a bad game, the important part is having it available for people to play as soon as possible. I mean, that's also basically how the AAA world functions anyway now. Like they
right.
release buggy games really fast, and then you expect to get patches from them. But I still think that as a developer, that's what you should thrive to do. You should
Yes,
just release games. That's
right.
all. That's the most important part.
And then with the indie lifestyle, you're like, oh, if it's broken, wait for the next one. It'll
Yeah, that's fine. You know, just start new projects all the time. It
right,
happens.
right, because you don't have to like worry about. Not everything has to be like a forever project. You know, you can
Yeah,
jam around more
yeah.
and
Game jams in general are good for just publishing small stuff, getting seen, getting known.
right, right, because it's like, hey, I want to make something, and I want to like there there's sometimes jam culture when game jam culture feels like crunch culture and not like jam culture is when I feel bad about it. I'm like, I don't like that, but I appreciate more that is when people is like, yeah, you just make something, you know, and there's no like
Yeah.
prize or uh, like you're not like crunching to hit a deadline or something, and you're just
Like for
like,
me, the prize is having people play the thing I made.
yeah, yeah. There's a lot of because game developers don't can't like do gigs, you know, they can't play gigs because it's just you just publish something online, you don't get that kind of immediate feedback, you don't have an audience to bounce off of in the same way that other arts do.
Yeah.
So it's like that. It's nice to be able to just kind of because a jam at the very least you hope if it's working right you at least all the other contributors will play your games.
Not really all the other contributors, but usually some of them do, and
Yeah,
there's some kind of judging team. So
yeah. So there's at least somebody. There's people who are
yeah,
like,
somebody's gonna play your thing.
and they're at least and they're trying to engage with it too. You know,
Yeah.
which I think is an important aspect that gets lost of just kind of promotion without engagement. I think is a tricky thing. I think kind of probably uh, uh, is frequent in the sort of like hyper indie space, and that's the minor issue with this idea of like shorter games with worse graphics is it's people will be like, oh yeah, I love these, but uh, it came up a lot last time people were talking about this. Like, oh, people going like, oh, you love these things, but what games do you actually love? Like, name two of
Yeah.
them. And I saw more
What are the
people.
real games you like?
Yes, yes, it's great that you can say that. It's a fun little slogan, but if you don't name any games, it's just kind of an empty slogan. And I saw more people be kind of expressing that attitude of. You gotta actually, and but the tricky thing is, I think social media does not it does not encourage you to engage with things people aren't talking about.
Yeah.
It wants
Yeah,
you.
like usually, like I have a few YouTuber friends who play some of my games, among other things. And like, there's one of them, like I like him a lot, but it's just that I know for a fact that when he plays like Binding of Isaac, he's gonna get more viewers. That's
Right.
like just more people will see it. And I've seen people like when he plays smaller indie games, people comment on his videos like, "When are you playing Isaac?" And yeah, Isaac is a great game, but so like I like other smaller ones too.
Yeah, yeah. There's Isaac came from somewhere. It didn't come from a vacuum. You know, it came itself from a legacy of small games. And I think it's easy to like not realize that very rarely do those things you really like come fully formed out of the ether.
There's usually someone
Yeah,
making.
it is usually some legacy of like Flash development that like led to, oh, now I made the Binding of Isaac after 30 other games that were made.
Oh yeah, speaking of Flash, I'm really happy with the current state of Newgrounds as well. Like,
Yes, yeah,
if you want to make something and have people play your game without any effort, just go on Newgrounds. It's very easy. Like you just make something, people will play it.
yeah,
It's really a good platform as long as your game is a browser game and free.
right, right. But it's fascinating that Newgrounds survived, but also like
Yeah,
they put in the effort to make sure that it survived because they were
yeah,
like
they did.
they built that whole like Flash replacement thing. Oh, they went to too many. I could have gone to too many. I've been to too many games before. I could have met. I could have been there with Tom Fulp.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
I actually thought. Anyway, that's. I'm looking at. I'm getting distracted now.
yeah,
I've
Newgrounds is amazing.
I've had people say like you should get deep into Newgrounds, and I got. There's a lot of
You
stuff.
should.
There's a lot of stuff to do.
You should, and there is still time. Honestly, like
Yeah.
sometimes, I recommend Newgrounds to a new developer to like publish their first game on, and you don't need anything. Just make a browser game, and
Yeah.
people will play it, will comment on it. Maybe if it's bad, they'll play it for less long, but it's still a really good platform for free indie games,
You're
browser
right.
based.
Uh, yes. Yes. It is like it still is what it is. Newgrounds didn't change. That's the beauty of like the internet is like you don't actually need to change what you do. You don't need to like pivot to video. You don't need to adapt, and it basically looks the same too.
Yeah, it does.
It doesn't really look that much different than what I remember it to be. Maybe a little cleaner in some spots, but still just like a front page full of shit.
I like the fact that the front page is actually full of games when compared to like Game Jolt, which does not really have games anymore.
Wait, what is Game Chill now? What does it do?
You don't need to learn about it. It used to be a platform kind of like H where you could upload your games, but now it's sort of a social network. Like they basically turned a game uploading platform into Discord, like a mix between Discord and Twitter.
Oh, that's weird. I used to upload some early Indiepocalypses to Game Chill, but like nobody used it.
Yeah.
So I didn't.
It has absolutely zero organic reach. Like even on itch, like when I look at the analytics, there's some amount of people who just discover the game because it's on itch. But on Game Jolt, I had one of my projects with just zero views other than my own.
Right. Holy shit.
So, yeah.
Oh, I was like, why did I get a million views? It was because of the sale. People probably going through the sales. Um,
Probably.
but yeah, that is a weird thing. Because I remember Game Jolt being kind of like one of the early places you could.
It was cool. Like when it got out, it was one of the first platforms where you could monetize your indie games, and I made a bit of money from it. But they just slowly turned their platform away from game dev and turning it into a social network
Which
for
is
kids.
pointless.
Yeah.
But anyway, anyway, we're at the end of our segment here. Oh, I have
All
42
right.
notifications on Game Jolt.
Well,
My God, there's a bunch of people following me. A lot of people following me.
that's
Oh, you know
great.
what? It's because they follow. So it looks like someone followed like every issue. I put up the issue 15 on there. I was at that for a while. Um,
Yeah.
anyway, we've already reached the end of our segment here, but an important question before we go. I need to ask this of every guest. An unofficial, the second unofficial Indiepocalypse question.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite Toho character?
God, I don't know any of the Toho characters' names. Like, I know the songs, I know how they look, but I do not actually have a favorite Toho character. I guess the one with the rainbow wing crystal things. I have no idea
Okay.
what her name is. Marissa
Uh,
or something.
no. Marisa is the witch. She likes to steal things. The person with
Yeah, wait.
the wings. She lives in the Scarlet Devil Mansion. She's not Patchouli. She's not Sakuya. She's. I forgot. Uh, I now it's bugging me because I kind of know it. But anyway, I am not
What's
a
her
Toho
name?
expert either. But I'm curious. It has become a part of the show that I enjoy asking people. But we're going to go on break.
Oh,
Uh,
Flandre. Okay, it's Flandre. I knew
yes,
it's
Flandre.
Flandre.
Yes,
Yeah.
I like
So
the
yeah, if
whole.
you ask me what my favorite Toho character is, it's Flandre.
I kind of like the whole vibe of all those people in that whole setting. But Adrian, thank you for being here. We're going to go on break,
Okay, thank you for having me.
and we'll be back in about a minute 20. Goodbye. Hello
Like
and
late
welcome
night.
back to Indiepocalypse Radio. That was Los Campesinos with It Started With a Mix. We are here with our next guest, there's my thing, who you may know from issue 16 of Indiepocalypse, still a long time ago, but less long time ago, with Power Couple. It's Mark Strox. Mark, how are you doing today?
Hey, what's up? How's it going?
Going great, going great. Glad to have you on the show. Glad to. We've been doing some spelunking lately on the Indiepocalypse Radio of going all the way to the past and double checking with people one last time. And I'm glad all the people are saying, "Yeah, I'll give that show a shot." Now that you had time to prepare, I have an important question for you. I want you to cast your mind back. What is that? Over 2 years ago, and I got
Really?
yeah, right, right. That's math, right? Because 2 years is 24. 24 plus 16 is 40. We're on to 42. So over 2 years ago. Classic Indie Apocalypse doing math on stream. It is. How did you hear about Indie Apocalypse?
It was a game jam as well, and I
Yes.
have been thinking that lately. I don't know why I have never hosted any. It is such a good idea to use that to get people to learn about whatever you're advertising or get people to join you in your co-op or whatever. And I don't use that enough. It's genius.
Yeah. Yes. As a tool, if you're using Itch as a tool to just like get people, even like not making a jam, as a tool to just kind of get people in the same space and submit their games to something. It's a great game submission tool. And I think people have like adapted to using it for that kind of like if they want to make huge bundles, they'll be like submit your game to this or whatever, and that kind of thing.
I'm always like, I'll see people release a game, and then soon after they'll have a jam for like hacks or supplemental stuff for that game or whatever on the tabletop space.
Yes, yes,
I should say.
yes.
And
I was gonna perfectly transition to that. You are a tabletop designer, which are also featured in Indiepocalypse from time to time.
yours is the only project I think that has done such an incredible job to kind of connect to all the different communities on itch. I mean, that's the only time that I've seen like indie games and video games and other types of projects all in the same thing. That really is the only time.
Yeah, I'm a longtime fan of tabletop games as well, but also I think there's room for like these spaces to like interact with each other, like and like art that comes from the art form it's in is deeply limited, so it becomes very circular. So I think it's fun to get people like, oh, I've played some video games and I'm gonna play some tabletop games, or I'm really into tabletop. I'm gonna play some video games.
It's a lost opportunity that people don't do combined projects more. Honestly, you should have someone making the 16-bit version while you're making the tabletop version, and because I mean, I've been to a bunch of game development seminars and stuff, and they always say like prototype your game as a tabletop game first, anyways.
Yeah,
So it's like there's such a big connection there, and obviously with role playing games, so there really should be more. I do see like soundtracks for tabletop games sometimes, but that's about it.
right, right, and like a lot of tabletop games are like they come from like a place of adaptation of like broader ideas, including sometimes video games.
Yeah, I know, exactly. I think that's become bigger more recently too.
Yeah.
It's like, how do I make my favorite game into a customizable experience? I think that's the only thing. That's probably the biggest thing. I shouldn't say only thing. That's probably the biggest thing that tabletop gaming has that I think other media forms don't have as much, which is it's a totally personalized experience. Every single time you're at the table, you make your own story. You're deciding all the choices. Video games have that to some degree, but they have a plot that you're following
Right.
usually.
Right.
So
They have rules.
yeah. So how do you grab all of that from your favorite video game and then drop yourself into the world and make your own choices or make your own stories? I think that is something that people try to pursue in tabletop games a lot too. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting because tabletop game. It's not just like they're not all one sheets to say pretend you're Mario. They're like
Which
Sorry.
that's a whole other topic
Right.
too, because sometimes, like, I don't know if there's like I love a lot of the great tabletop publishers. There's some that have gotten really big over the last couple of years, and obviously besides Wizards of the Coast and all those big ones, but like sometimes that you're excited that they get the license for your favorite series,
Yeah.
and then they release it and it's like literally just have the same story again, or just be the exact same as the main character from the movie, and I'm like, that's not what when I watch the movie, I'm like, okay, cool, this story has been told, but there's a million more you could tell in this world. That's what the game should be about,
Right.
But man, I'm sorry. They usually do a really good job, but the Blade Runner game, I was like, this is a little bit too. It's like you're literally just telling me to make like Blade Runner 3,
Right.
where I want to have like my own version,
Right. You want to see what the Blade Runner is like outside of the frame of the movie. I think that's the appeal of like, listen, it's improv acting and role playing. It is not.
Yeah.
Script writing and like sequelization. It's people exploring the fringes of like what they want to create and what they want to like imagine. But speaking of what people want to imagine, what would people be imagining if they were playing Power Couple? Which is to say, tell me a little bit about Power Couple.
I'm looking through it now. I have not looked at this game in a year since, like
Yes.
I said, this was 2 years ago. It's interesting because, first of all, I've done way more. Like I said, I've gone to seminars. I've done a lot more projects since then, and I would say my style in terms of writing and development has grown a lot and it's changed a lot. It would be really interesting to see if there's anything that I would change here. This is probably my first foray into like GM-less play,
Yeah.
where you were letting the cards kind of decide everything, and that's definitely become my obsession. I everything I do is some version of GM-less or solo play or something, because I think that if you can just have procedures in there that create all the information,
Yeah.
it's perfect for you. Also, if every game I read is always like, okay, you say what you want to do, then you roll, and then if you fail, basically the GM tells you what your consequences are.
Yeah.
If I could just streamline those consequences, you're good. Now when you fail, you just pick one of the consequences, so it's like,
Right.
And it's really fun, I think, when you have like a big group of people all collaboratively with their own characters building the story together, kind of thing. And this was really my first attempt at that, which I think was really cool. It's also, at the time, this was when tarot games were just kind of starting. I remember when I was thinking about how to
Yeah.
do this game, I was like, is that a little risque or not, or uncouth, or I don't know what word you would say, but
Right. Yeah.
this is like a lot of people, I'm sure, treat this very seriously in terms of their religion and their culture,
Yeah.
and then I'm like, oh, they're just like another version of playing cards. But there's
Yeah.
tons of tarot games
Right.
now,
Right. Right. And in some regards, they are just another version of playing cards.
Yeah, and then even if you speak to people who
Yeah.
who deal
So-
with tarot a lot, they'll tell you that as well.
I want to just jump in here.
Yes.
The tarot cards and the playing cards actually overlap. The thing is, the tarot cards have an additional set of cards. Like they have 22 additional cards,
Yeah.
but there are also cards that directly correspond to the playing cards, and you can do a tarot reading with playing cards. It just won't have the major arcana, but that's like something that some people do.
Gotcha.
Right.
And I think the major arcana is so fascinating too, and the symbolism there is really powerful for more inspirational gaming, I would say. Right? If
Yeah.
I it's much more interesting to me than if I roll a d20 and get 16. That's so boring compared to rolling, drawing a card and it's the magician. Oh my gosh, that story.
Right.
So it's honestly perfect for that kind
Yeah.
of work.
Yeah, for people just like even people who are just like very unfamiliar with tarot conceptually, it does have a like as it's more evocative, just even in terms of phrases like the magician. Even if you're just drawing, a collection of these phrases, they I think that's what's drawn a lot of people to, because I do see a lot of tarot used as a card drawing mechanic in tabletop now. And I see it, and in addition to just like standard like bicycle style, is that what they're called? Playing cards. I was like, wait a minute, what do you call those?
The bicycle deck is like
Yeah.
a really classic deck, but yeah,
Right.
I think you could say playing cards.
Yeah,
Sorry, I'm just like jumping in specifically for things about cards.
no, I'm glad that's a little sneak peek of our next guest. But I think that's how the show works. I was saying in the break zone that this is kind of like we're all theoretically at the same table, even if there's a focus guest. But anyone can jump in if need to provide data that I saved me the time of searching this information. But yes,
Yeah, happy to provide it.
glad to receive it.
So
Yes.
yeah, looking back at this game, I really do like it. I think basically it's the all the major arcana are different situations that you are presented with.
Right.
So the Empress is one of your parents or like mentors arrives. And they could be not even from Earth. Yeah. So I guess I should give an overview of the game. What it is you are the power couple. You are the Goku and Vegeta, or the can't think of another example, but you're the two most powerful people on
Yeah.
Earth, basically. And if a threat comes, you have to deal with it. And then the tarot cards will help show you what that threat is. And I still love that idea. I think I would do more with it now. I think some things have changed in terms of this was my big conceptual combination of action and romance too, and I think I would do even more with that as well. So
right, because and something you mentioned earlier, and I think this is another very interesting part of game design. You mentioned at the very top of when you talking about improving on this made me think about that is the idea of hacks and alterations is very common within game development. I come across a lot of games like, oh, this, I have games submitted. I'm like, this game looks very familiar in terms of how it's played and its rule set. Like, oh, right, it's because this is also a hack of X game, and that is like
genius. Because you already know the rules, right?
Right.
Like you already know how to play, and it's like, and if you're just getting into game development too, you can rip the game up and learn like why is it like this? What's different to other, game development? I don't even know what you call them, schools. Right. I don't know.
yeah, but it helps you to be like, you don't have to create your entire rule set, especially when you're dealing with like a lot of role playing games, whether they're using dice or cards, deal with like some degree of randomization as like your additional player on the table, and having someone else already work out the logistics of that randomization to be like, these are good numbers that generally work for this game, I think can like alleviate a burden for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I'm always trying to find more. I think that's why I'm looking harder into like resolution mechanics.
Yeah.
And whether a GM is needed, but I'm also always trying to find. I think honestly, my gaming education my world totally opened when I played Powered by the Apocalypse, because it presented such a simple thing as the partial success, right?
Right.
And then the story generated, resolution too, but that's a whole other thing. So it's like, okay, most of the time you're going to get a little bit of what you want, and you're going to have to deal with some consequences too, because that's what real life is like.
Right.
I think depending on what kind of game you're making, there's other things you can do with it too. Because a lot of people emulate that. It's either you succeed or you don't, or success, partial success, and failure. And I think there's more ways you can do with that too. I don't know. I want to say like the Fantasy Flight Star Wars has the like, you have a roll to see if you succeed, and then rolls to see if there's consequences too.
Yeah.
But I don't. That was always a little convoluted to me, but I think there's a lot of really cool things you could do with it. Like, I would love way more mechanics for like when just totally unexpected things happen right when you're in the middle of taking your action. You were in the wrong place at the wrong time, and actually it doesn't even matter at all. Things like that happening.
Yeah. There's so much.
Oh wow, sorry, you just talked about Fantasy Flight games. Arkham Horror, the card game, is amazing.
Okay. I
love Arkham Horror.
I've dabbled. It's harder to play board games online. But yeah. Wait, did I play that one? I'm trying to think. In the Googling time. Yes, okay, yes, that's the game. I'm familiar with you. Hello there. Yes, I know you, that giant board. I love a giant board sometimes. But that's also the beauty of tabletop games, or role-playing games. You don't need a giant board. The giant board is in your imagination. But there is, resolution, because I think if you come through the traditional route, which is, dungeons and or dragons, it is very much about, at least since I've touched it, it's about pass-fail and a lot about winning,
And about money, which
right.
I'm kind of coming around to more. I think it is kind of funny, especially if you change genres. When you're in like a fantasy game, it's always about like how much gold you get for your quest, or we really need gold so that we can buy gear, so we need to find quests. But then I think if you put it into other genres, it's really funny.
You're right.
If you put it into modern genres, then it's kind of maybe too real.
Yeah, I'll be honest, as a player, I don't know if I've actually respected the amount of money I possess. It's just like, I think our play style has never been like, do you have enough money for this? It's like kind of like a binary state. Like, do I feel, does the person running the game feel like I have enough money for this kind of thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But there's like conversion charts, there's copper, silver, and gold, and you have to convert them. And if you're worrying about encumbrance, I think it factors into that as well. So if you can't carry 100 gold in copper because it's like 1,000 pieces of copper or something ridiculous, I think
that would be funny. I don't even know if that would be really cool. If there was a game where it's like you really need money to do everything. The galaxy or the villages or whatever, they're really run by money. But however, their inflation is so high. The currency is so heavy to hold. Like, you have to have like thousands and thousands of dollars on you to even make a dent. So it's really, now it's like managing your encumbrance of how much money you can even carry.
Yeah, it's like a big prize is not getting more money, but it's getting a larger bill. It's like, finally,
wheelbarrow. Yeah.
I turned my 10,000 coins into one singular bill.
Oh, thank goodness. Yeah. Now I can just, you're like trying to invent new economic systems. That would be cool too.
Yeah, there's see, and this is the dangerous part of tabletop design. You just like, I can just write that. It's just words on a page. Mm-hmm. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean it'll turn out good, but there's that there's less of that immediate block because we all presume generally that you can write words on a page, whether it's typed, dictated, or handwritten. It's easier than video game design because you have to make code, and that's a real pain in the ass.
I did get to a point though where, similar to what Adrian was saying earlier, I think when you're at the beginning, you're doing jams, you're making hacks of whatever your favorite games are, you're putting them out there. You don't have to worry about any kind of art or design or even playtesting and making everything all perfect and publishable. But then after you have a bunch out there, I had so many games on my page, and I was like, I want to do a bigger project,
Right?
Because I'm ready to. I have enough experience to. I want to put all the design work into it that it deserves, so that people pick it up and can enjoy it. And then you do need to start watching out for the thing that Adrian was saying, which was searching for that perfect version of your game, especially since in games that's the worst thing you can do. For like, if it's a painting or other kinds of art, that's another thing, but for games especially, you're never going to find that, and playtesting is what's going to find that too. So if you don't put as many eyes on it as possible, you're never going to reach its actual state that you want it to be at, because they're not going to play it yet. They're not going to try it out and know, okay, we need to make this better by playing it.
Yeah, like nobody is going to know what is. Like, you're never going to know how other people are going to react, especially for something that's so, malleable and, audience dependent as a tabletop game. Mm-hmm. That is, how people are going to receive it. You can't tell if it's broken or not, necessarily, without someone playing it.
Yeah.
And, witnessing someone playing, because they might break it immediately, I might go, oh.
But what unexpectedly works, honestly. Because when they play it, they're going to be like, oh, this was my experience. And you're going to be like, oh, that was 30% of what I wrote. Maybe I should play that up more if that's working really well.
Right. You never know what parts people are going to gravitate towards, or what parts. It's such a interesting space to work in, and I'm fascinated by it, and it's such a cool self-publishing space, and I like it. I like to see what people are coming up with, especially when you see emergences of when you start seeing a lot of hacks for somebody made a new system that a lot of people like, because you'll start to see a bunch of hacks for it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think the next big evolution too, not revolution, but I think the next big generation is going to be more solo gaming too, because I think Ironsworn really opened these big floodgates, because there always has been, but I think when I saw Morkborg has this solo pamphlet for it that's Solitary Defilement, and I was like, oh, okay. I opened that up and I'm like, okay, cool. So solo OSR, how's that gonna go? It's a hack of Ironsworn. It's very similar to Ironsworn, and I was like, wow, that is so interesting, because Ironsworn is basically, it's powered by the Apocalypse, and this is combining all these different. Maybe I'm talking an outdated old curmudgeon about oh, you can't combine OSR and NSR and FKR, but no, it's just interesting to see where they're all going, and then everyone's definitely trying to find different ways of solo play for their favorite games now too. So I think that's going to be really big. There's going to be a lot more Ironsworn hacks. There's going to be a lot more, maybe even bigger publishers are going to have more solo rules for their games and stuff too. So
yeah, because it's a whole it's a whole space that I think a lot of people wouldn't even think about. They would think role playing games are group activities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it feels like it's this wildly untapped, although it is also aggressively tapped at the same time. But it's a new space, rather, I should say, for people to explore in the relative to the age of tabletop role playing games.
Mm-hmm. And which I think it still is, a group thing. My games, honestly, I intend to be, 2, 3, 4 players, but you just wouldn't need one of them to be a GM. You know, anytime any kind of challenge comes or consequence or just surprise comes, I could make it for my character. I mean, I know what my character's like, story and character arc are. I could come up with it and make some cool stuff. But if I have a bunch of charts to roll on to help me, that's even better.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, some degree of guided play is nice.
Yeah.
But with that said, before we go to break, I have to ask you had plenty of time to prepare for this important question, Mark, which is, do you have a favorite Toho character?
Oh, I had never heard of this until you brought this up earlier, but I looked up some of them.
Yeah, okay.
Otherwise, I would have no idea what you're talking about. But, Yuka Kazami.
Thank you.
um,
Thank you for doing the immediate research.
Phantasmagoria of Flowerview looks cool. I don't know anything about this series. I saw one picture. She looks cool.
Yeah, it's got a lot of great words, just a lot of good collections of words strung together in it. It's just a lot of fun designs, honestly. I think that's part of the appeal of it, and the music is good. Anyway, this isn't Toho class. Maybe I'll do that for the next pledge drive. I need to really dive in and I'll run a Toho class. But I also need to become an expert as well, which I am not.
Andrew, will you invite me to Toho class? I don't know much about Toho.
Yes, I will. I'm gonna put my flag in the sand now. In 8 months, I'm dedicated myself for the fourth Indiepocalypse pledge drive to study up on, find some experts, and host a Toho 101.
Every time someone says Toho, at first I picture Godzilla and think that's what we're talking about, but I know it's not.
Correct. Technically, that is Toho, but it's like this. You're getting it through my American tongue. It's because it's Toho with U's after the O's, so I have to probably put a little spice on it that I don't know how to put on it. Kind of like I'm very bad at rolling R's in the same way. It was a sticking point. I was good at it. I was good at Spanish, but I just could not, I was very bad at rolling R's. Anyway, that's all I'll say. Thank you, Mark, for being here. We're going to go on break.
My pleasure.
And we'll be back in about 20... no, we won't be back in 20 minutes. God, that'd be quite a hell of a break. We'll be back in 2 minutes and 49 seconds. Goodbye. Welcome back to Indiepocalypse Radio. That was Screaming Females with Soft Domination. We are back here with our third guest of the show. We're back on that 3-guest high that I started off with, which was irresponsible. But I've kind of fallen back into it again 2 weeks in a row. Her next guest, who you may know from issue 18 of Indiepocalypse with Paint Boy. It's Shara Weiss. Shara, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Now I can't ask you the traditional Indiepocalypse question because Paint Boy being an early commissioned game actually.
Mm-hmm.
Only 6 months in, but so the secondary question is, did you know what Indiepocalypse was before I emailed you?
Yeah, I'd seen it floating around Twitter. I had not yet, because definitely some of my friends had already been in it.
Right.
And so I had seen it tweeted about, but I hadn't really gone into it. But I think I already followed you. I think we already followed each other. I could be wrong about that, but then you emailed me about it.
Yeah, I could never remember.
You reached out to me now.
That could have been the thing, because sometimes that is how it happens. Where somebody will follow me at the end of the month, and I'll be like, "Who's this person?" And they're like, "Oh, this person looks cool." I also need a new game for 3 months from now.
Yeah, totally.
And that is
no. I was really happy to get to do that project. I felt like it was a nice excuse to do something very quick.
Yeah.
I've been making games since I was 11. And when I was younger, I did a lot of quicker games. You guys were talking about developing a game just super, like as fast as you can, not really
Right.
worrying too much about how will this even land with people, and I think that where I'm at now is that like I have to support myself with games,
Yes.
and that's it, it sucks. It means that I'm often not working on the things that feel the most fulfilling or like able to really do my best work, depending on like what project and like what kind of role I'm actually being put into within it, like there's
Yeah.
definitely a lot of being a cog in a machine, but it's also like, like like for a while I was trying to do game dev and as a non-money thing and like retail and stuff like that on the side, and like that was actually the most burnout. Like that was worse than the worst crunch I've had in terms
Yes.
of burnout,
Yes.
because like the shit you deal with in retail, oh man. Like yeah, no.
that
So
you're describing the first 3 years of Indiepocalypse.
yeah.
That was me,
Yeah,
and that
but absolutely.
when you see me at my worst online, just you have to remember that Andrew of that time was working in retail during
Oh
COVID.
yeah. Oh
uh,
my God, you were working retail during COVID? I can't even.
in a supermarket.
Jesus Christ.
So yeah,
Yeah, no, that's serious. I did not realize that that's what was going on for
yeah.
you. Yeah,
That's the house that built Indiepocalypse is supermarket money.
yeah, totally. Yeah, but so like because I've realized that makes me like, that's just it just wasn't sustainable doing
Right.
that, at this point like I do contract work, right? And so like I was really excited to get that that little commission to just like make something really small and like yeah, I don't know. I felt like it was nice to kind of yeah, do something where like the prompt was to do something very experimental, whereas
Yeah.
a lot of the time I think because I'm trying to make money with the games, it's almost like I'm trying to show them something that doesn't seem experimental and then actually it's experimental, but like
Yeah,
the
but
people who are gatekeeping shit don't know.
right. It just as long
It's
as it
like
looks enough like a video game.
yeah, exactly. Like it has to pass all these sorts of like checks of like what they think is acceptable, and then like within that I can like stash away something that I think is really meaningful and special, but it's like you're doing double work because you're kind of having to like almost hide everything, in
Right.
order from gatekeepers basically in order
Yeah,
to get
yeah.
money.
Yeah, you're trying to just Trojan horse interesting design into a video game.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And
But
like yeah, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say you're also trying to make sure the horse is very small so they don't even see it, which is
Yeah.
a whole other problem.
Yeah, definitely.
We mentioned we talked about it. Tell me a little bit about what, if I'm unfamiliar, what is Paint Boy?
So Paint Boy is it's a painting game. That's what I'm calling it
Yeah,
because so the concept was to have. So first of all, I was thinking about tools and the way that tools are what kind of creates artistic style in a lot of
yeah,
ways, right? The limitations of a tool immediately create a certain style. And I wanted to create basically a 2D art tool that was more about playing it than about having really nice like like having like the full capabilities of like an image editing program,
right, yeah,
so like right because like one thing I was thinking about, well, so how the game works is you have you have a little character who walks on top of the canvas, and then they can swing their paintbrush and it will like splatter paint outwards, and the paint brushes all use this thing where it's like a particle effect combined with a feedback loop. So they have some kind of unique looking like brush effects that have like a degree of randomization and stuff. And I feel pretty proud of how those look. But
yeah,
the idea is that you control it kind of like a twin stick shooter,
yeah,
and every little piece of interface is very like there's like all these like little springs on everything. Everything's like moving and kind of just moving in kind of a fun way where it's like I grew up using KidPix a lot,
yeah,
and I really loved that. And then I was also inspired a lot by Electric Zine Maker, where I feel like Natalie really like put a lot of like I don't know, like juice, honestly, or honestly,
yeah,
I'm moving away from the word juice because I feel like that's been played out, but like the concept of like flavor, right? Like
Right,
having
right.
things have a particular game feel that feels really unique. The idea of having game feel in a painting application,
Right. It has a
right?
lot of, yeah, it definitely has like a certain like vibe to it, and it feels like you're interacting with something that's not like it's weird for an image editor or like like an art tool to bring its own personality to you, but it is.
Yeah, totally. And like I think the other thing that I was thinking about around it is how like I think that art software has kind of how should I put it? It's like whether this is, I also do music, and whether it's music or image editing or game development, it's like there used to be kind of more of a diversity of different options that had different kinds of pros and cons. And
Right.
over time, things have gravitated towards sort of like the universal option, right? So like something like Photoshop, maybe for like image editing, has like every tool you could think of, or something like Ableton for producing like supports every feature you would want. And so the idea is that the software doesn't really come with limitations, and so it's universal and can create anything. But like I actually think it's kind of cooler to work with it, or like I don't know, depending on what you're trying to
Yeah.
do, obviously. Like I like the idea of making art within constraints and having, like throughout like all of like physical arts are this way. The whole
Yeah.
style comes out of how it's actually made,
Right.
and like I think that when you see these like universal kind of programs that are meant to be able to produce anything, and then like I think that sort of thinking is sort of how we've arrived at like this current moment with like, honestly, I don't want to get into AI art, but
Right.
like, with like that kind of mentality around that you see, especially in like kind of more techie circles, around like what even is art, what is good art, that it's like just sort of like a thing that can be conjured, that's very divorced from
Right.
like
Right. Because
how it's produced being deeply interwoven with what you're creating, if that
right.
makes sense.
Because I imagine it comes from this similar train of thought of like, oh well, Photoshop is already doing all this line straightening, all these a million little tools already existing. Uh,
Yeah, like just the idea that you can produce like anyone can produce anything from anywhere,
yeah,
and that like specificity doesn't matter really, because you have the idea of having a world based around universals, having a universal program that everyone in the world makes audio with using the same tools. Like that's
yeah,
actually like I don't really fuck with that vision.
right, right. Like I
Yeah.
like having kind of like, I would want a universal for something. It's like if I need to do a specific thing, that's why it's a universal. But it wouldn't be like
Right. Right.
my
There's
main
certain
go
times where
to.
it's good. Like when you need to do something very specific, it's good to have a way to do
Yeah,
it. But yeah, I think that when we're talking about like, like there's a utility thing, but I think that, and actually honestly, I think it also connects to this idea of like art production being like like it's thinking of it as utility and like literally production, like efficiency,
yeah,
as like that it's necessary in a lot of ways to survive. Like again, like I'm speaking like, I'm doing like contracting stuff, like all the efficiency shit. It's necessary to survive
yeah,
in this thing, but it sucks.
right.
Like it's not like a way to like, it has no connection to producing good art. It's about it's about like maximizing the output of labor, basically. Like the
Right,
output of goods based on
right.
the amount of labor. So like it's like in a totally different like conversation even than like the qualities of the art, I think.
Yeah, because it's like it's something you can you can go to your application drop down, you can put Photoshop expert, Illustrator expert level. They're just it's treated as kind of like in the same way as like a universal skill set. Like it's just kind of like a thing you have for a job of like, oh yes, I guess I'm not I'm a skilled graphic designer. I am expert level Photoshop user. Uh,
Right.
uh,
Right. Yeah, totally. Yeah. And anyways, so that was just some of the stuff that I was thinking about when like that I had been thinking about when you contacted me about the commissions. So I felt like yeah, it was really exciting to just be able to do that. And um yeah, I don't know, like I I recently finally like released the game separate from Indiepocalypse.
Yes,
Just
yes.
yeah, just very recently did this. I had at one point included it in another bundle, but for the most part, it was only through Indiepocalypse for like I don't know. I think it was like a year and a half or so.
Right. Yeah.
But like yeah, I'm hoping that I'm hoping that more people will make art with it and just show me what they make. You know,
Yeah.
like um, I think that to some extent, maybe it's almost too limiting and isn't letting people make art that they want to post. But I, you know, like that, I think that that's my one thing is that like if I were to keep working on it, I would probably just like probably try to give the player just slightly more control, you know.
Right, right. Just like
But
maybe
like
a couple,
yeah,
like touch-up tools, because you can't lose, I think, the
yeah,
core of what it is, because it is fun to
yeah,
run around as a little guy, slapping paint
yeah.
around.
Mostly, I would just want to add like a bunch more brushes and having ones that are maybe like a little bit more like similar in style to each other but different, so
Yeah,
that like you know there's like two brushes that are similar enough that you would use them in the same image, but like different enough that you can use them in different ways. Anyways, you know, there's always more to add, right? Like
right.
I definitely built that game in a way that I could have just kept adding brushes forever. So it was
Yeah,
probably good that I had like a hard limit because like you know, as much as yeah, again, like we've been talking about, like I know a lot of the guests you have on the show are very much like of the like I release games real quick, and like unfortunately I'm not that. I
no,
value that a lot, and I've had periods of my life where I've done more of that, but like I unfortunately can definitely get bogged down in the like keep adding stuff.
right, right.
Um, you know, because I feel like when I put out a game and like I mean I not just adding stuff, sorry, that I think that makes it sound like I'm doing the AAA thing and just literally adding shit to
No,
add
no,
shit,
yeah,
you know. Yeah, but like yeah, it's like when I do release something I'm always really proud of it, but I think that like yeah, it's just something, it's a constant balance honestly
right,
for me because like you know it's like I have a lot of love for these games and like I want to keep giving them love. You
yeah.
know, and
You're
trying to
not.
disentangle that from being like, I want this game to be marketable, I want this game to be sellable. I mean, like if that's what I'm doing, if it is a game that I want to be marketable and sellable, then I guess that's what I have to think about. But like for Paint Boy, that it's just really like I want this to just be the best it can be, you
Yeah,
know?
and I think
Um,
there's a difference between like I think the kind of adding content of like the content treadmill kind of style and like seeing as an artist
yeah,
that there's more space to still explore here that you want to
totally. And
explore.
I mean, you know, and I say this like, you know, it's like again, like I'm, you know, I contract on games and I have had times where I'm basically feeling like I'm kind of being put on a content treadmill and
Yeah,
like the thing that I have to do is like figure out how to make that content meaningful even if I'm not always given enough tools. And the more I have that experience, the more I realize that that's why so much of contemporary media is the way it is, where you'll like, it's like someone who is really passionate will be giving everything they have to a tiny little sliver of it in like a huge disorganized kind of onslaught of like shit. You
yeah,
know, you'll have it's like someone put so much love into this character design, but like the whole big picture is fucked. But
right.
like, you know, like and you start to realize that like that's also, you know, it tends to be like the, you know, like more marginalized developers tend to be in the less prominent roles, so they have to sneak their things in little places, right? And so
Yeah,
you'll
so
like
you get
you'll find that stuff, but that's why it's like you play a game and it's like, oh, there's all these cool queer characters in this game, but like the game itself
is
isn't that, you know.
right.
But it's like because
It's
someone was like, I really want my queer character, and that's the scope of what I'm allowed to do, and I'm
yeah,
so passionate, I want to have this character in. but like there isn't actually like a framework to really receive and support that and make that work shine. It's just kind of like thrown into this big pot and like, kind of hope for the best. I really think kind of how a lot of artists produced right now.
That is right. It is like you finding your tiny spot within a large machine, where you can be like, I look at my gear, and it's a very cool gear in this large machine. But
exactly.
Right. It's just like that queer character is one like, 1/1000th of a moment of a side quest in a game that has 80 million side quests, and they're blinking you miss an ambient dialogue, but they exist.
Yeah, no, totally. Like it's challenging when I'm like, I like working on larger games, and sometimes it's like, it's like I'm gonna make this side quest really good.
Yeah.
But like I'm relying on you guys to like make this all fit together, because right now, like, like I'm doing everything I can to make it all, tied in with everything, but like this is the side quest.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. Anyway, and I think that like I think that a lot of that just has to do with, again, just like how games are produced right now, and similarly, like I think there's a similar issue in film right now. Like huge productions that are like
they're just like they're especially
in this way where
they're increasingly franchise driven too.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So you have this big franchise-driven thing because that's how you can get the money in your pocket, and then everyone is trying to do something that they will be proud of within that. But like you're trying, it's like you're trying to work within this really shitty mold, and like you're trying to build something beautiful in it, but you can't really go outside of certain lines and stuff. And it's like and then at the same time, like your role is very small, and oftentimes you're assigned a bit too much bullshit to do in order to like it's like at the end of the day it is also at times like a job, and like I mean it is a job, and at times you have to like accept that it's like I'm going to do the level of quality of work that they're letting me, and like if they say I have to rush it, I have to rush it, and that sucks, but like that's what you get, like that's not on me, that's on like a producer or on like whoever.
And it's that difficulty of like working in like the arts, as a job, where you're like, I like this, I like my output. It's not like, oh, I don't care what spreadsheets look like. I'm gonna make them, and I'm gonna clock out at 4, and I'm gonna call it a day.
Totally.
So it's to be like, oh, you want to put as much as you possibly like. You can see like the best possible version of this side quest in your brain. And you want to, even if you're like the 80th entry on a credits of 10,000, you're like, I in this moment want to make this the best that I can.
Yeah.
And
totally.
And people definitely see that too, which is like, and that is people are like, oh, did you see such and such moment, or like it connects with it. And the game industry is very bad at recognizing people, also.
Yeah, I think right, like that is the thing that kind of like makes it worth it at times, is just like when people it's just like people like these games are so big, and it's easy to forget that the player experiences it at such a moment to moment level. And like one NPC in a game with 300 NPCs, like one NPC could be an important experience for that player. Like that they could have a life-changing experience with this one NPC interaction if it's that good. If it's like one, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Like everything is they're experiencing everything in real time. Like every room is experienced one at a time. Like they'll look at like specific objects around a single room, and even no matter how big the game is, And so like, I think that like that's part of what makes. Like sometimes it's when you're working on something so big, you have to be really zoomed out, and you kind of lose track of that. And I think that one of the things that makes it feel like, oh, actually that was worth it, is when I finally get to see someone I don't know play the game, and they're able to experience it room by room and see how I put love into each room, and like actually appreciate that. And it's like, oh, cool. Like I'm not just like squeezing shit in here. Like,
Yeah.
I put thought into what should be in this room and what it will tell and how it'll pace out, and they actually received that,
Yeah.
and like that that to me is what that like that's one of the best feelings around, yeah,
Because
like working on. And I should also clarify, like, I'm not working on AAA projects. I'm
Right.
working on games that are like in that weird scope of indie where it's like only a few full-time people and
yes.
like a
Uh,
lot of contractors who will pop in for like short periods of time.
indie, I sometimes call it budgeted indie. Indie where you can afford to
Yeah,
hire people.
yeah, exactly, right. And it's 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 very different, and
Yeah.
I think that like you know uh it it's cool because it pays me money.
Yes, I love things that pay me money. Money is a great thing to have. I wish it wasn't, but it's a
Yeah.
great thing to have.
No, I mean, like, I love like being able to pay rent.
Yes.
That is nice.
Let me tell you, Shara, I love eating.
Yeah.
It's a
No,
great.
totally. I don't know.
Yeah.
What are you
It's
saying?
no, no, that no. Actually, what I'm saying is, I have one last question for you.
For
Um,
sure.
you had time to prepare. Toho, tell me about it. Do you have a favorite character? Have you developed one in these last 20
Well,
minutes?
like I said before, I don't really know Toho that well.
Yeah,
I think the characters are cute though. Like, I basically I constantly, like, I can recognize the Toho people, but
yeah.
like I don't know their names basically.
What's your favorite
And
looking one?
I like I feel like there's more than one maid is the
Okay.
thing. Like,
There.
there's definitely a maid in my mind, but I'm like, I don't think that's actually just one character. I think there's a few maids. But like,
Yes.
we're just gonna say I like the maids. I'm here for the maid girls. Like, that's
That
yeah, that's my thing. So
Scarlet
go.
Devil Mansion coming in hot this session because I'm assuming you're talking about Sakuya, who is she has knives, she can stop time, she lives in the Scarlet Devil Mansion, she's a maid. I think
Uh-huh.
Marissa has a maid vibe to her sometimes.
Uh, is there no one else who has the little maid bonnet?
There there may be more maids. Like I said, I'm also not a Toho expert. There
Oh,
may
well, Andrew, you're gonna
yeah
have to become a Toho expert
I
before we have Toho class.
before
I
Toho
think you
101.
talked
Yes,
about
Yeah,
front
before
row.
Toho 101, right? Because like I need to learn.
yeah.
So,
I've got to
yeah.
make sure everybody listen. If you're within the indie game space, you gotta know what Toho is. People just they just know what it is. It's a common language. Uh,
So true.
uh, uh,
Yeah. Okay, wait, I have a question about your Toho interest.
yeah.
Have you which Toho games have you played, if any?
I've played. I've played the first one. I've played Highly Responsive to Prayers. I've played the one with the moon, where the people from the moon are coming down, and I've played a couple others. I don't remember all their names. And I've played
It's called Highly Responsive to Prayers.
that's the first one. I love that title.
That's such a good name.
I Mark had mentioned one of the other titles that the characters from. They're all from like really good. Oh, here's I'm on Sakia right now, but she's an unconnected marketeers. Is
I feel like someone's gonna take away my T-girl pass for not
yes.
knowing shit about Toho.
I think yes, yeah. You were within the indie space. You're in the hyper specific indie space where,
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
you're like
I'm in the cat girl
yeah,
space.
yes. You're like when you go Toho, you tug on your collar. You go, yeah, I love Toho.
Yeah. I've never heard of Toho. I'm like, yeah, take off my cat ears.
Right. Well, that's the secret because you say, "Will you tell me about Toho?" That's
Yeah.
Wily Beast and Weakest Creature. Toho's got a really great names, but anyway, I've also played the something B. I forget their name. They also made a Lodos game. They made a Metroidvania ish.
Oh yeah.
It's Metroidvania ish because it's more like a level based game, really, but it's fun to play.
Nice.
It's Metroid adjacent, and those are even I would say Symphony like because they are very like that style that came from Symphony of the Night.
Oh, I love the Symphony of the Light.
Yeah,
for Metroidvania light kind of games.
the Lodos game, she swings her swords exactly like they swing in those like the Symphony, Circle of the Moon, all those types of games.
Yeah.
It's the exact same like heavy swing. If you're folks, if you know I'm talking about how they swing swords, you're like, I love the feel of this. Love the feel of how they backstep and stuff. Anyway, and I played the cafe game a little.
There's a cafe game?
Yeah, there's
a cafe simulator?
It's like a diner dash like sort of thing.
What?
But Toho. It's
really?
It's a good way to it's something izakaya.
Okay.
I think
I'm gonna find this, and I'm gonna fall behind on all my work.
I think a friend of the show, Lily Valine, I think I had poisoned her into playing Toho Misya's Izakaya after she was on the show last week or a week ago, because I saw her posting about playing this game after I'd mentioned it. It's fun.
Wow, it's 40% off. We're plugging it here for something.
Oh yeah, folks, for $360 on Steam, it's good. It's good art, and it's a good way to introduce, like, if you're like, I want to take a crash course in Toho and learn all these characters, they all come to your little izakaya.
Okay, wait, Andrew, before you go, because I feel bad that the only game that we plugged is a Toho game. Are there any like smaller games that you've played recently that really caught you?
Just see, here's the weird thing, because I mostly play smaller games in relation to Indiepocalypse. But
you maybe hype up one that's going to be in a future issue or something.
There's something I definitely want to say. What's it called?
Oh, go ahead.
On Friday, I don't know if it'll actually go live on Friday, but on Friday when the new one comes out, that means that Lentillions, I'm hungry, I'm healthy, I'm human, will be freed from exclusivity. And folks, it rules.
Tell me about that game. I haven't heard about it.
Okay, so it's like a survival game.
Is it top down?
No, it's like a side-scrolling, like, sort of survival game, but you put food, like, you combine things. It's like a survival builder sort of thing, kind of, but you run around. Also, it's a platformer. It's hard. I don't know how to describe it fully.
Right. I feel like one thing about, like, weird games is usually if you try to describe them in, like, 2 sentences, they sound just, like, kind of generic.
They do, yes, right.
It's, like, the execution that makes it, like, oftentimes I think, like, today, an experimental game is often more about executing something in an experimental way than having some kind of, like, elevator pitch, high concept, unique game mechanic.
Yeah, like, it's hard to describe, like, how it feels really good to run around in that game and jump around and, like, bounce and bump into, like, it's got a great feel to it.
Nice.
If you've played, it's a Falcom game. It's an early Falcom game, like Dragon Family.
Which one?
I think it's something Dragon Slayer 4, the Drassel family.
Oh, yeah.
When you fall down that game, you have a cute little fall animation when you bump up and everything.
Mm-hmm.
It has that very similar animation to it.
Gosh!
When you fly and you crash.
If it's at all inspired by, like, the old side-scrolling Falcom RPGs, like, I'm immediately sold.
It is of that kind of, like, yes, aka Legacy of the Wizard, yes.
I've been, like, needing like some Sorcerian, just, like, hooked directly, like some modern game that has, like, a like, I need, like, less direct Metroid pulling, more Sorcerian pulling.
Yes,
that's my opinion.
I'm very close to, like, I am currently knee deep into being like, what if I just played all the FromSoft games?
I've played almost all of them, and I think it's worth it, and it's really cool to see the progression and how concepts in the very first Kingsfield, they're, like, show up in much later games, like the ending of Dark Souls 2, for example, is like deeply connected to the ending of the first Kingsfield. If you
Yeah, and like Dark Souls feels
like, I mean, Kingsfield JP. I mean,
yeah, it feels
be
so.
clear.
I see. I felt for like a dumb American. I played Kingsfield 2 first because I was like, oh wait,
It's better.
Yeah,
For what?
I'm currently playing Kingsfield 2 US, Kingsfield 3 JP, but
Oh.
it rules. It's like
Yeah.
Anyway, if you like Dark Souls, it's basically what if I took Armored Core and combined it with Kingsfield, and that's Dark Souls. Because it's like I can build my guy all the ways I want.
About it, yeah.
But then also, there's weird people who are doomed and laughing, which exists. Anyway, we're gonna go on break, and then we'll come back and we'll probably talk more about From stuff because it's on my brain now. But sure, thank you for being here.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
We're gonna go on. There's my little foobar. How you doing? We're gonna go on break, and we'll be right back in like 2 minutes and 38 seconds. Goodbye. Welcome back to Indiepocalypse Radio. That was Captain McFadden and Manipool with Do Not Access. We're back with the whole gang. This is a full gang crew. This is everyone here, all hanging out. Hello, everyone.
Hey,
we're all here.
What's up?
I was talking about so bad video games. I think this works. This goes perfectly into multiple conversations. So I was talking about Kingsfield, and like that game is a first-person action game, RPG, but it doesn't. But you don't use the analog stick. It's all on like all the camera controls are like they used to be because there were no analog sticks on the shoulders. And I'm like, theoretically, you could change that in modern consoles to just be modern quote unquote controls, but like.
Yeah, I hate that impulse, to make everything controlled the normal way. Honestly, like for me right now,
the recent Pikmin games because
I haven't.
Because basically they made the new Pikmin on the Switch, Pikmin 1 and 2. They made it control like modern games. So like you used to be able to just move your Pikmin around with the C stick. Now you need to hold a button to do that because the right analog stick is its normal function that is to look around.
Right.
And it's really annoying.
Yeah, no, I hate that. Like I feel like when I play a game that controls wrong, it like immediately grabs me, if I'm being honest. Right. Because my brain actually has to like remap. Like I played too many games, if I'm playing another game that controls exactly the same and has exactly the same mechanics, like I already have all those mappings, like all that wiring already in my brain, and I'm just kind of like doing a familiar routine, and like that can be good if you're trying to maybe as a designer you're trying to use these associations people already have. But at least for me, when I see a game that controls wrong, like where things handle in ways that are like clearly not conventional, like that does so much more for me.
Yeah, and an hour in, I was fully adapted to it. Maybe I'm a pro gamer. I don't know, but
no, right? It's like you get used to it, and like but like. Oftentimes it comes with some degree of constraints. Like with Kingsfield, it's like you have a limited turning radius. You can't quickly turn around, or like there's like certain things that are hard to do that would be kind of trivial with modern controls. And like I don't think it would really be that fun, honestly. I think the whole combat system would need to be reworked to have other sources of like of what's it, friction,
Right, because it
played one recently. I played one recently called "Fit for a King," which is amazing because each letter of the keyboard has a different function. Like it's
oh my gosh,
you can do anything. Like
that
you
is.
Can marry, you can jail people. It's great.
What is it? Oh, is it? I can't see. It's one of those things I can't tell if it's new or old, but it's new.
It's quite old. Like
it is old.
It was like 2 years ago.
Okay, so that's not that old. It just looks old. IGF 2020. Yeah, so it is. And that is,
I love that.
Play
kind of
old
stuff.
games back before they quote unquote figured it out, because you'll realize that we have not in fact figured it out at all. And there was like
But I don't know, just adapting old controls. At least give people a choice. Like have the modern way as an option, and have the old way as an option. Like at least do something this way. Anyone can like it. But I really like. I mean, I really hate like old games being remade for a modern audience, but while preventing you from playing it the old way.
Totally.
right.
Yeah, I think
that's
one
what I was
thing
gonna
with
say.
the like providing a modern control option thing that's tricky is that typically like you end up having to take it you have to use all the constraints of both control schemes, if that makes sense. Like I did like a tank controls survival horror game with a bunch of friends and a few years ago called The Devil, and yeah, for a little while we were trying to pitch to publishers basically an extended version of the game, and one of the main like things that was brought up is like the need to have camera relative controls,
Yeah.
But one thing about the game is we built it all around having these like very zoomed out shots and very zoomed in shots, and we were like really fully utilizing the tank
Tank.
controls, the fact that we could cut angles really abruptly and like do all these things that you can only do with player relative controls. And so, like, in this meeting, I was trying to explain to this producer that, like, if we include, like, if we include modern controls, we're also going to have to make the camera angles work well with modern controls, or the
Yeah.
game is going to be a shitty experience for the people who use them.
Right.
And so that would actually limit what we could do with the tank control, like, and so that's why I feel like a lot of gamers will bring up like, oh, why not just have an option for everything? And it's like sometimes it like I mean, for a lot of things it's cool to have an option. I'm so for options when you
Yeah.
can, but like it's like if this is something where like the majority of players are going to use modern controls, then like the game has to also still be good with modern controls, and now that's like a whole can of worms.
I
Yeah.
imagine that the fixed camera angle thing would be complicated. Like you need to design areas the player is not supposed to see in tank controls or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
was
can
gonna
see
talk
a
about
bunch
tank
of
controls
problems.
too, because I loved Resident Evil 2 so much, and then when they remade it, I guess I just kind of assumed that wasn't something that they would change, which silly me, but I was so excited to be like, oh, let's go back to that really odd system of I'm trying to work my legs at the same time while shooting, and it's impossible. But that's what makes it twice as scary. Like I love that, but of course, they just
No,
changed
they
it to every
changed
other
it.
third-person shooter or whatever.
Yeah. It's
Right.
I could
Still love that game though.
go.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, games can still be good if they, do kind of bland design things. But
Yeah.
I think that it's more that, like, there's, like, this almost like a imaginary, like, platonic ideal that a lot of game designers or gamers or I don't know who, just culturally, it seems like there's all these things that are, like, considered, like, this is the ideal, and you
Right.
shouldn't really deviate from it, And I
It-
think that's really detrimental.
It's where I get confused whenever there was people arguing about Pikmin's time limit, and they argue about Zelda's durability. But whenever I see these things, I'm like, they're neither good nor bad. They're simply choices you make in a game when designing it. Like I love the weapon durability in Breath of the Wild because it's part of the
too.
game. It's fun to pick shit
I
up and
hate
just throw it away. But
when
some games
you play
it's-
games and there's too much crap everywhere. I
Yeah.
hate when you have a full inventory the entire game. I like that the game is like, no, you got to use something else. I'm like, cool,
Yeah.
I'll use all this old stuff I've had since the beginning of the game.
Yeah, and
Right.
so-
The idea that items are a limited use resource is not bad. It's just part of the game's internal like economy, like the item economy, and it's like it's weird to me the idea that people have like very like hard like, oh no weapon durability, and it's like, well, you think that you hate that because you've seen it done badly in like a bunch of games that like it has been done badly so many times. Like I
right, where
won't
it's just a
hate that.
chore.
Yeah, but like then it's kind of like, okay, like because that idea was executed badly elsewhere, like now it's just like off limits.
Right.
I think it's like really like just I don't know. I really feel like there's like an increasing narrowing of like what is acceptable game design, honestly. At least in a lot of circles, and I really think that, you know, you were talking about using the word like the underground scene as opposed to the indie scene, but I think that like of all the game developers, the underground scene needs to be the ones pushing back on that hardest, I think.
Yeah, because that is where, like, you know, the new thing that people will swear by that is the truth comes from you know, underground developers being, actually, what if I did it this way? And then eventually someone's version of that catches on, and then people go, oh, this is how games have to be now.
Right.
Make it
No,
bad on
totally. Yeah.
purpose.
At a certain point, someone like rips off the creative idea, like makes a bunch of big money off of it, and then suddenly it becomes played out. And it's honestly, it's kind of crazy how fast that's like. I've seen that. I've now been around games enough to have like seen that happen a couple times, and it's kind of like just how quickly the turnaround goes from like something, you know, like someone creating something that felt so fresh to like everyone is trying to capitalize on this now.
Trend
Like,
chasing.
Yes. And even things that didn't feel fresh, but were still, and that's not even like fresh in like a positive connotation all the time. There's some design trends that I don't like that were newer ideas, slot machine equivalents, perhaps.
Like loot boxes.
That were, let's just say, if I took my friend Simon Belmont and I turned him into a slot machine and called it a video game.
Yeah, obviously.
It's,
what Konami's doing. Yeah,
it's weird to see how many people be like, yes, this is a game. It's that thing of getting in as soon as you can to make money.
It's literally a money making machine. It's not a game.
Right. I was talking about Vampire Survivors.
I don't know.
So
I think it's fun.
Oh, sorry. What was that?
No, I think Vampire Survivors is fun. Yeah, obviously it's meant to like optimize stuff, but I like it.
Yeah, no, totally. I think Vampire Survivors is a great example of this, where it's like it's a cool project made by like, in my understanding, pretty like regular people. Like, not, you know, it's not a corporate thing, but it was a big hit. But then like 1,000 corporate clones came out within, you know, and now it's like a genre, but like only because a bunch of people are trying to like get the same, like a bunch of people see, oh, there's a money bag here,
right,
you know, like, and I hate that, like, I feel like that's such a frustrating approach to genre, and that's what we see so much from like the way things are produced, where like genre actually gives you a lot to work with if you approach it well. But the idea of like, we're gonna like, genre equals audience, like that, you know, and like, like picking a genre that's just gonna get you, that's like, you know, shown to sell right now.
Right, and it kind of like, you know, if you want to talk about a certain other coziness, you know, if you will, it kind of forces people into genre sometimes where they don't even belong, because that is like marketable. It's like, don't put pastels in your games.
Yeah, no, trust me. I tried to pitch a game that had no discernible genre, and it's not really possible.
I tried the reverse of it. I tried making a game once with every single genre. It was amazing.
Oh.
It was bad. don't play it. But like it has basically, I took all the genres on the Game Jolt and made one game with all the genres.
Yeah,
I remember the games.
And it's just like right. It feels like because you can rapidly iterate these sort of things, maybe that it feels like the trend to stagnation feels very fast sometimes.
Yeah.
And even in things that, like, you know, I make fun of, what's it called? Just because I don't like it, I imagine there, but that doesn't mean there's like, I bet if you gave me, you know, every the third, fifth, sixth derivatives of Vampire Survivors, I wouldn't even play them at all. I'd play them for like 10 minutes.
I haven't played any of them.
And be like, oh, there was an idea in this original game that is like, just like been extracted. I think it is the software side of game development, you know, where where someone like there is like an intent to often like the original games, but like the core mechanics get ripped out, and those are what get replicated all over the place. There's core mechanics with a different coat of paint on top of them, and that's how you end up with things that just kind of feel, I don't know, empty.
Totally. So I wanted to ask the other two guests if there are any like kind of smaller or more underground games that have really grabbed them recently, you know, or like like projects, either things that are maybe not out that you've been lucky enough to be able to play, or things that are available like on itch or whatever. If there's are any games that y'all have been really into lately.
I don't even think I played any games lately. I'm really trying to think. Maybe Mark will find out before I do.
Yeah.
I've mostly been working. I mostly had my head down, honestly, recently. But let me see. Let me take a look at some of my stuff. I think that
it doesn't need to be super recent, but maybe something that, you know, like if there are any like smaller games, even in the last like year or two,
right? Like an old standby, like, even,
you know, where it's like people would think to go out and play them, you know.
I just looked at my Steam and like what's his name? Edward? Wait, no. I forgot who made Inscription. I need to Google this, but basically anything. Wait, let me find it. Who made this? Daniel Mullins. Okay, so basically there was a tiny game jam game which Daniel Mullins made. He's who made Inscription. It's called Baba. It takes maybe 15 minutes to play, and you should really play it. Baba.
Perfect. Oh, and another one, if I want to cast my heart back and don't talk about if I get off brand and don't talk about Indiepocalypse for a moment, my standby perhaps of what's a nice little indie game you love. I don't know if it's playable anymore actually, but if it's playable, I really love Pit of a Thousand Snakes. I think about it a lot, and I played it.
Nice. That's definitely a throwback.
Yeah, I played it a lot when it came out. See, folks, I've been in this game for a long time.
yeah. Right.
Yeah, I remember.
You're doing like special runs, challenge runs of House of Thousand Snakes.
I remember I'm famously on the East Coast. I went to an early PAX, and I remember talking about Alexander Bruce and talking about how I was playing Antichamber back when it was called Hazard: A Journey Through Life. Yeah.
Antichamber.
And I was
sorry.
And it was like, I'm not new on the scene. Sometimes I wonder if people think like, oh, like what's this new guy who's like new to indie games? Like, folks, I've been playing. I was messing around in Tigsaurus and all that shit.
No, for sure.
Just because
for me, this is a terrible answer, but in terms of if we're shouting out stuff, I want to remind everybody about the Choose Your Own Adventure books from like the 80s and 90s. Yes. I collect them, and they're so hard to find sometimes. So I would say check your libraries. They might have like one or two, but I love the old like Goosebumps ones they used to do. You can't even find either. But
Goosebumps ones are really good.
Yeah,
like Into the Jaws of Doom.
Yes, have like some alien ones. There's box sets too. If you could find the Choose Your Own Adventure ones, they'll do box sets with random themes in them and stuff. And I have the one that's just 5 ninja books, which is so funny to me. But they're awesome, and they give me so much inspiration for all kinds of game development too.
I recently read, what is it? Is it called 2001 or 3001? I forget the name of it. It's a comic. Odyssey. Or is it 301? I forget what it's called. Why am I searching numbers when I should search Choose Your Own Adventure comic? It was very cool. It was like it was very much styled, kind of like a choose your own adventure or like what's the word I'm looking for? Like an adventure game almost, where it's like, but it's a comic. And it's an interesting way of like, because about like, I think I've talked about it on the show before. It makes you think a lot about how you contextualize information, because flipping through a choose your own adventure book, there's some ease because, you can flip past words and not instantly read them. But when you're flipping past images, they're like hitting you right in the face kind of immediately. So
Yeah,
and like,
totally.
and it made me think about like how can you like in games like visually like contextually provide information to players, because it's that similar thing where it's not like a movie. The player is controlling the camera, to some extent.
Right.
We were just talking about fixed camera games earlier.
Right, but that's a special constraint
Right.
that like opens up some new possibilities and closes off some other ones.
But even then, often players are deciding when they move forward or if they're going to go into side rooms and that sort of thing.
Right. Totally.
Agency.
So it made me think a lot about It made me think a lot about how you can visually present information that's contextless or like just washes over you because you don't have the visual the mindset for it yet, and like how you can constantly recontextualize spaces, especially because within the indie space you want to make as few assets as possible. Keep it light. I looked it up in the book as 2120 by George Wildsall. He also did another thing that looked kind of cool. I forget what it was called.
So I'm looking at it.
I got it off Avery Press. I think I actually just got my 10th anniversary. I just unloaded them today. My Avery Hill. My latest. I kickstart a lot of. Oh, Tilly Walden. That's neat.
Well, the bubbles are so small. I'm looking at it right now.
Oh, the other game is Ghost, etc., I believe.
Ooh, that's a cool name.
Yeah, I realize I have this all these little postcards of what I imagine like were their past like big hits, because I love this part with by Tilly Walden, and I don't know all these books, but that's the one I do know off the top of my head. But now I'm like, oh, look at all these other. How could I do something with this? Now I think about it. Anyway, I like comics. Sorry,
what did you say?
No, I said I like comics, and I like to look at how other small press publishers like do their thing, and it's where I get a lot of my ideas from.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, comics honestly are incredible. Like I feel like there are so many things that are possible in comics that would just be so hard to execute in like any other medium. Like I've really been enjoying like comics and manga, and like I don't know, it's something that I've just in the last like year or so like really gotten back into.
Yeah.
And I get like so much inspiration from that. Like yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you guys, have kind of going back to a previous thing we were talking about like Kingsfield controls and how those are really the bad controls are kind of essential to that game.
Yeah.
In a way. And it made me think of a more recent game, like an itch game. I was wondering if any of you guys have played First Land by Photocopiadora.
I have not.
I think it's like it's definitely one that's like really worth checking out. I just like every system in the game is extremely unconventional down to like okay, like it's a first person game. When you play it on the gamepad, it has tank controls. When you jump, it like the whole jump handling is like completely different than normal jump handling. Like everything about the controls is unique. And then the adventure game puzzling is actually through like a speech system. So it's sort of like a free roaming Myst kind of game, but then you use this speech system where you can put together different symbols to produce like a series of words. And the whole thing is just like incredibly, it's like as you go deeper into it, there's more and more like strange and esoteric systems. But it also kind of has a lot of the qualities of games that people would describe as walking simulators, in the sense of like that you're like a lot of the game is just like going through beautiful environments that have like a lot of visual storytelling, and it's really well executed.
Yeah, it is definitely
try
like
that
there's all
one?
these like particular like kind of one of these days I just finished watching all of my giant stack of movies, and once I work through my giant stack of comics, I have a nightly routine where I make sure I clock out at a certain time and I enjoy art. Uh,
Yeah, awesome. That's a good routine.
because I feel like it's also like an essential part of like if I'm just kind of like working all the time, like having a broad palette, you know, is part of being a curator. I guess that's what I tell myself. But I want to definitely dive more into like just like contextuals, like not anything to do with Indiepocalypse. Like, what if I just played indie game or like these small games and just kind of played them and didn't do anything else with
Yeah,
it?
totally.
It's just a hard mindset to get out of because I've been doing it for so long. But
Yeah, totally. I think that everyone in games experience, like who works in games, experiences some degree of the weird bleed of like, I'm doing this as work, and then at some point I need to reconnect to the fact that this is my passion.
yeah,
You know? Yeah.
and that's usually where I use weird old games like Kingsfield.
Yeah, totally. I mean, same. Yeah.
Because it feels it's more disconnected from like the whole, because you know plenty of those games is like, oh, that's something I would like. Am I going, oh, I should contact that person to see if they'd include the game, or I should commission that person? Like, it's just like to turn off that part, but because I both want to turn it off, but I want to keep that part on and always be looking. But anyway,
Right.
games, I love them.
Yeah, games.
Video game.
They're
Video games, am I right?
they're cool
Yeah.
things. I recommend that people
And
play
board
them.
games.
They're okay.
Hilltop.
There's some bad ones out there. I don't recommend.
Of course.
Games are bad.
I don't recommend you play all of them. There's,
I don't think it's physically possible, like there are too many.
yeah, I think if you stopped right now and didn't do anything else, you would never have enough time. There's just simply not enough time in a day to play all games. It's just like, even if I didn't have to sleep or eat or do anything else.
What I recommend is instead of playing all games, just play all the Legend of Heroes Trails series.
Right.
There are like 10 of them, and they're all over 100 hours, but they're
Wow.
great. But yeah, you should just do that.
You're right.
and
That's
not
like
play
a lot of time.
Well, that's what, yeah, but like this will last you for like, you know, at least a large chapter of your life, you
Right.
know, if this is all you play. So that's what I'm
Oh.
saying. It's like, let this be your journey. Commit
This
to
is-
one really long, beautiful, long form game.
this is your Falcom era.
Yeah.
Indiepocalypse is traditionally, we have said, Indiepocalypse is very pro Falcom in these parts.
Yes.
I am a big fan of Falcom. It's
Yeah.
cool stuff. I love kind of like very singular, like people who just like are making the games they want to make, and it's just like it's a perfect example of like a niche, you know. They're still making East games, and they're still
Yeah, no, totally.
they're still
I do feel like their more recent output has like,
yeah.
okay, I know I have opinions about Falcom. I think we're over time.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is the point where I
That
was like,
happens
oh,
a
we're
lot.
hitting 2 hours, so I should wind it up. But that usually means we go for another 30 minutes.
For sure. With regard to Falcom, I think that like they're a really interesting company because, you know, their whole philosophy of design was based around like trying to compete with really big companies by delivering really good scenarios, you know, like creating a scenario system, and then they could create like a lot of really like tell a really good story, and like the idea that one writer who's really good can create an incredible narrative
Yeah.
if they just have like a good event system. That's been like their philosophy for since I think like the 90s has been like explicitly their philosophy. But I think that their like very most recent like latest generation, basically like Cold Steel 3 and 4, I think kind of like are showing them hitting a degree of like the corporate content churn thing you know, where like
Yeah.
it's a lot of like, oh hey, you know, remember all the characters, everyone's going to come through a portal and it's all your favorite characters from all the games, and like they're going to have, you know, like remember this character, now we're going to teleport somewhere and have like some weird random scene, like, you know, there's like it's that kind of thing, you know,
Right.
honestly. And I say this like my name comes from, like, my name Charizard comes from those games. Like I'm a big fan. Like I wouldn't just kind of be like, this sucks, you know. But yeah, I don't know. I think that Falcom has kind of fallen into the content churn shit a little bit.
Yeah.
But Crossbell Saga is like probably like the best JRPG.
Yeah, and, like, listen, even if they've fallen a little, how many hours of Falcom exist before any kind of fall? You know,
Yeah.
there exists so much Falcom in the world that you can just be like, yeah, I'm just gonna dive into that's not even saying like I want to get into Xanadu, you know, or Dragon Slayer.
Yeah.
Oh
like,
yeah.
so many.
The first Dragon Slayer on the Game Boy. Wow, that was amazing.
There's like
Early Minecraft.
let's bring back the let's bring back Draga likes. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tower of Draga. That was also great.
Let's bring him back. I joked
Actually,
once.
it did provide an experience that I think no modern game does,
Yeah.
which is the fact that people in the arcade had like a booklet where they would share what they found in the game. Like it was kind of an ARG at the time, Tower
Right.
of Draga, but now the internet exists, so it couldn't really.
It ARGs far too quickly. But I had it exists somewhere in my brain the joking idea if I want to make a Simon like, or no, I called it a Simonvania, which is basically just what if I made a Metroidvania, but actually it was just really inspired by the obtuseness of Simon's Quest.
Oh wow!
And just like,
and then you get entire Discord servers trying to solve it.
I love the idea of just like really obtuse design. But there's like also very specific, because I think, you know, obtuse design, but if you want to go look up how someone else saw it, because it's the great equalizer. Because if I want to go to GameFAQs, because I don't understand how Valkyrie profile works, and I don't have 80 hours to play through and replay through Valkyrie profile to get all of the play out of it, I just go to GameFAQs and they can tell me how.
Yeah. Just Google it now.
Yes, but the idea of a game that exists within that like framework, you know, that is something that people can bump up against. Like if you just were sitting down and did not understand like how I like Valkyrie profile, that first Valkyrie profile, I think it's very cool. And not to say I think the other ones are not cool. I just simply have not played them. But
I mean, all you really need is a sort of obscure game made by an indie dev which nobody knows about, which means that you can't search for it online because nobody played it yet. That's probably what you need.
And you need to like, I think there's so much like, and there's still people doing that stuff, you know, that kind of. There's a reason in 2023 people still think about La Mulana, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway. I'm not going to talk about it because it might be my 30th entry into going, what if I play La Mulana and then I give up? but I like that as an experience of like just playing this and kind of remembering parts of it and like not looking up how to play La Mulana. One of these days I'll get GameFAQs on monitor 2 or on the laptop and be like, okay, I'm going to actually beat this, but I don't have. I'm an adult with a job. I don't have.
Oh, wow. Imagine that. Imagine being an adult.
I know. That's. No, sorry.
I always want like more iterations on. This is tangentially related to what you're saying. I just reminded me now. The Persona series I love, but I always feel like it's kind of similar to what I was saying with Power Couple, is that it's like this combination of like social romance and also action and, you know, dungeon crawling, etc. Right? But I feel like the Persona series always puts too much into the action, and I want more of the like. No, during the day I want to be able to go on dates and have it like affect the monsters more. Right. You know. So I would love to see more iterations on that, especially in the indie space.
I will. We got to wrap this show up. I would say they made dating too easy in Persona. I think it. I think it kind of like. I think it's still like this. I remember in 3 you could get like dating wise. I think you could max like one person, and it took like the entire game.
Yes.
And now I can do it with like everybody, and it's like.
Yeah, 3 was the best one. I missed that one. I feel like they
like,
keep getting easier. It's so true.
I think it's too much. It falls too much into like that wish fulfillment element of dating simulation style games that I don't particularly care for. Where it's like, oh, they no longer are characters; they're objects to be acquired.
Yeah.
Right.
But listen, I was trying to wrap up the show. We're gonna wrap up the show this time. We're gonna do it, folks. We're gonna do it. We're wrapping it up. I'm clicking through Valkyrie Profile. I love the art in this game. So, damn, folks, play Valkyrie Profile. It kicks ass. I love it. This guy's got a huge ass sword.
Nice. That's how you know it's a good game.
Yeah, you know it's a good game. It's nothing but a slab of iron, as they say. But I also recommend play with it. Fire up that. Don't be ashamed to fire up that game facts. If you don't have like a bunch of time to play a game, I would just play like the full Valkyrie Profile once. Tri-Ace is something I'm also thinking about. Like Tri-Ace, because
one shorter JRPG that I've been playing recently is Fuga Melodies of Steel. It's
That's cool.
Yeah, it's only like, I don't know, 20-30 hours, which I mean for this type of game is relatively short and tight,
Yeah.
But it has a really cool take on how a lot of RPGs will have this thing where like characters can die permanently, like Fire Emblem or whatever.
Yeah.
Characters can die permanently, and that actually like takes them out of the story, so then like you don't get certain story content. But like with that, it always kind of happens accidentally because the characters die in like 2 hits or whatever at the beginning of the game. Yeah, totally. So like their take on it is basically the boss fights are really incredibly hard, and when you are close to death in a boss fight, you have a soul cannon, like an ultimate weapon that like wakes up, and you can put one of the characters are all children. You can put one of the children into the soul cannon and like sacrifice them to just like obliterate the boss, but it will like impact how the story happens going forward. And they really make you like love all these kids a lot. So like it's interesting because just the fact that the kids could die, or I could be put in a situation. Oh, sorry. You also can't go back and grind. That's another important thing. Like there's no grinding allowed in the game.
Because it's all basically like on a straight path, right?
Exactly.
Get more.
Right. Yeah, you can like take a path that's like less risky if you're like at like low health and low SP, and you'll get like less rewards or whatever, but you can't like repeat things to gain experience or whatever. So if you don't RPG really good to beat the really hard bosses, you might be put in a situation where you actually do need to use the soul cannon to win.
Yeah.
So like the fact that I'm like I I love these little cat boys and cat girls. I need to protect them.
Well,
so therefore I need to RPG so fucking good. So I never have just the potential, the fact that there's the potential for them to have to for that situation to happen. It's like it makes the game like a lot more compelling. I don't know. It's a really cool. I've been really enjoying that, and I know the sequel just came out recently, and I'm definitely going to pick that up when once I finish the first one.
Yes, CyberConnect is making a million Naruto games to fund their little cat people games that they want to make.
Yeah, no, exactly. I'm so here for the furry RPGs.
Yeah, because I always forget that about CyberConnect,
Robo,
where it's like, oh right, they made Tail Concerto,
totally. Right, and those are actually all in like one like broad universe. So technically, Fuga is like I think a prequel to both of those games.
Yeah, I don't know. I just remember.
Yeah, it's before.
It's pretty loose.
Yeah,
there are like 80 million dot hack in Naruto games, and then occasionally say, "Hey, who's this little furry guy in here?"
Yeah, I mean that's really how it is though. It's
Yeah,
like
that's life.
okay, like yeah, like you think about how between doing like Killer 7 and No More Heroes, Suda 51 did a bunch of licensed games.
Right.
You know, it's literally like yeah, it's like okay, we're gonna have some guaranteed income, and now we can take a risk on a furry game without like potentially all destabilizing our sources of income and our
Right.
employment, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
I can't remember if it was just like hearsay or if it was true, but I remember hearing a long time ago that even like on the larger scale, like Assassin's Creed was funded by, Imagine Babies.
Wow.
Like,
I'm sorry for, I don't know if this loud sound is coming in. I'm walking outside.
oh no, you're fine. No, it's just,
here.
and I think that's like THQ was kept aloft by those like Nintendo Game Boy videos they made, those GBA Nintendo episodes, and it's just like
Yeah,
it's like the mass market stuff lets us make the weird stuff, or like not the weird stuff,
Right.
but like the
Need
personal
bottom
stuff.
line. Yeah.
right. Yeah, I mean, it gives you the room to take risks without like putting yourself in a precarious situation.
Right.
And like, I feel like for a lot of my career, I've been like, I'll just take the risk that puts me in a precarious situation, and then it's like, oh shit, like I'm not in a good like,
Right.
whatever. So
I'm in a
Yeah.
precarious situation now.
yeah, oops, like how did that happen?
Right.
Right. So, like I feel like I increasingly understand how it's like one of those things of just like you have to interface with capitalism in some kind of way.
Yeah.
And if you're going to like, yeah, I don't know, like I think that doing license games is probably like a pretty good way to like make sure that you're still providing for your people, because like that's sort of the thing is like once you have people you're working with, taking big risks also puts them at risk and destabilizes them,
Right.
And so it's like a lot of burden it can be,
Yeah,
or
because
like
for as
if
much
you-
as
yeah.
I know people love like Fuga and stuff, I just went on Steam real quick to compare. Fuga has all reviews 755. Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm 4 has 61,000 reviews.
yeah. Right.
So like Naruto pays for Fuga,
Exactly.
and whatever else they want to make. Asura's Wrath.
That was
Oh yeah, I
amazing.
didn't play that one.
Wow.
Is it? Okay.
Well, I know, no. So to be honest, it's not a video game. Like it's more like a giant anime in a video game format.
Yeah,
but
but
it's really
Uh-huh.
great.
It-
But
Cool.
honestly, if you just look at YouTube playthroughs,
No,
it's the same experience.
I'm the opposite. I'm saying it is an
Really?
exploration of QuickTime Event as a form, and I think you need to play it in order to experience it.
Oh, okay.
I
Cool. Yeah,
played it.
because it dropped.
and-
Or go ahead.
Yeah.
No, it's just I played it, and also I watched the
Yeah.
videos, and like I personally didn't feel much difference. Like for me,
Yeah.
I just wanted the next beat of the story, and losing at the QuickTime events just meant I would see the story later. That's how I felt.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I think when the game came out, the reason that I didn't pick it up at the time was because I was pretty like done with QuickTime events mentally,
Yeah.
especially after, I think it was after Heavy Rain. Like I think that was the last straw for me. It's just like, y'all tried to elevate this the most and it was still terrible. So I think that like we can move on. So I think that it just like hit a little bit too late on that trend for me to
Yeah.
want to play it. But I think that now that it's like, you can like look back on it and realize that it was developed in parallel to all those games and was probably started when QuickTime events were very popular. Like, I don't know, like it is one that I had already been kind of like glancing at and being like, should I,
If
should I
it's-
pick that up?
I would give it a shot. I would say
For sure.
I would say also definitely, man, David Cage couldn't write his way out of a paper bag. So
Yeah. Oh my God. I love, David Cage, he there's the thing how he said, I don't make games for faggots. And I'm just like, I agree. You really don't make games for me. like this is not hitting for me. So
it is.
I think that assessment was honestly correct.
I think what's Fahrenheit was a neat novelty or something. Like there's something neat about that when it came out, but like the
Sure. Yeah. Right. Because it was right when when QuickTime events were still like, oh, what are these? We don't even have a word for them yet.
right, and it's kind of like absurd to a level where it's or like it explores it so deeply, but also. Listen, we're trying to end the show. I'm not going to litigate why Heavy Rain is a poorly written story.
Oh yeah. It's self-evident.
Anyway,
it's like every level of it. Yeah.
Anyway, does anyone else have any last pressing matters to attend to?
I don't think so. I'm not sure.
I took the QuickTime events out of Resident Evil 4. It's bullshit.
That is bullshit. I think.
That's
Oh
true.
wow.
Listen.
Yeah, I want to lose that knife fight at least 5 times.
I want to die to a rock.
That is an essential that cutscene is in my mind is burned like an essential repeatable. So I had a joke once where I wanted people have like a night, like a performance night of unskippable cutscene monologues, as performance art, and in my mind that Krauser knife fight exists.
Oh my god.
Exists in the same space as if you're familiar with Kingdom Hearts, that Riku boss fight in Hollow Bastion, which we had lost repeatedly, and at a point we started because we were funneling our speakers through I figured out you could I could plug my PS2 into speakers into a stereo system, so we would hanging out while someone was playing that and kept dying to Riku, and we would turn on the TV and see how it would sync up with Yu-Gi-Oh or something.
Yeah.
It was a fun experience. I
nice.
Anyway, we're losing the thread. The thread's gone. So what we're gonna do is
the end of the show.
We're at the end of the show. It's been over 2 hours. I love doing the show, but it's got to end at some point.
Yeah.
Theoretically,
for sure. Well, it was really great to talk to you all.
But before we go, this is ostensibly a podcast, so we have to get to everyone's favorite part of podcasts. Where can people find your stuff if they want to find it?
Oh, you can find me on. Well, Twitter is apparently ending, but you can find me there at Tackerwyss, TAECKERWYSS, and you can find me on itch, which is the letter A, the letter G, and then the same thing, Tackerwyss .itch. And yeah, I don't know. I'm working on migrating to maybe something that isn't totally unstable, but that's where I'm at right now.
Build your own website; they're handy.
Yeah, totally. No, I did. I need to rebuild my website because I changed my name.
I saw that. I was like, one of the parts of Indiepocalypse is keeping up with people's names.
Oh yeah, no, I'll bet. Yeah, I know. I appreciate that you put so many trans people on. Honestly,
yeah, that is, it's an essential. I realized it at one point in commission devs, and I was like, all these developers that I'm commissioning. I'm like, because when I started off, they were like,
right.
My goal was like people with larger platforms, but it seemed like, especially when they had Patreons, it was very easy to look at a Patreon and be like,
yeah.
But it seems like it seems affordable to me. Like, this hits trans people a lot. I wonder if this says something about society.
Yeah, I think it says something about the scene. Right. It's just that it's exactly. Yes, yeah. Anyways, it was good to talk to you all. I'm gonna hop off now. Actually, yes. I have to go.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Talking to you.
Goodbye.
Mark, what have you got to promote? Where can people find your stuff?
So you can find everything I've ever done on itch at mstrux.itch.io. I just opened this week a drive-through RPG account and made a publisher account, so I'll be putting stuff on there too. But if you want to find me, you can find me on itch, or if on Twitter. It is not my name. My Twitter is at space sibling. So but either one, you can find any of the stuff that I've made, and I will be doing a lot more stuff too in the coming months. So.
Yeah, and listen, I also recommend people, and I'll say it also as an addendum to make your own website, or just get a URL and just redirect it to other people's sites. Having even if you just have a URL, it's a very handy thing to have.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Like technically speaking, Indiepocalypse is not my Pizza Pranks is my domain that I have registered and everything, and that is my website. But I
Oh,
use
that's not your birth name?
What?
That's not your birth name?
No, that's not my birth name. Nor is it a chosen name. This is my.
I love Pizza Pranks. It's
Thank
so
you.
great.
Thank you. It's a good screen name with great SEO. I think it has great SEO if I remember correctly. Oh yeah, it does. There's a lot of videos of people presumably pulling pranks with pizza, but otherwise, other than that, number one is my own damn website. Like not even my Twitter, just pizzapranks.com, home of Indiepocalypse. But other than that,
do you do any of the ones from the videos? Have you done any good pizza pranks?
No. I've said on the show before.
Prank people with pizza, really.
The teacher of the pizza prank was a friend. They were drinking a little, and he said, "Pick a card and close your eyes and pick a card." But then he put a pizza on top of the card, and he's like, made him touch a pizza, and he's like, got him.
Oh wow.
All of these are just like secretly putting a bunch of hot sauce in the sauce, and that's it. These are not very clever pranks.
No, those aren't. And also, that's not a prank because I love hot sauce.
Me too.
That would be like, thank you for that.
Thank you for pranking me.
I remember once the one time I went to Indiecade and I was in LA and I asked for I went to a street truck and he's like, these are hot. And I'm like, I love hot stuff. I know I am a white New Englander, but I love hot sauce. You do not underestimate me. I am not a tourist. I eat this shit nonstop. It's great stuff. Hot sauce. I highly recommend it. But Adrian, where can people find you?
Adrian. If you Google my name, you usually find me, but itch is the best place to find my game. So adrianditcher.h.io.
Yes.
And on there is a link to my Discord server, which is I'm most active on it.
Perfect. Yeah,
I was also going to recommend my Twitter. Well, Twitter is still alive, so I guess you can link to.
You've got all your stuff on there. This feels like another false death of Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna go back up soon.
It feels like this is like the 30th time it's died. It had some disastrous breaking thing, and then 2 days later it was fine. So
basically use itch as my main website.
Nobody wants to use it. They just don't know what else to do. And it's just like they're already on Twitter, so like I might as well use it until it collapses. But if it collapses for real this time, and that would be so great. That'd be so cool.
Yeah, it would be amazing. People would finally go to other platforms. It would be great.
Yeah. My favorite platform is this one, which is to say zero platform. Yeah.
Radio?
Yeah, radio. No, I don't know. Platforms are difficult, and I think people survived without social media beforehand. How do they do it? I'm trying to figure out how they did it. And I think
most of them are dead,
Oh shit. I don't want to be that.
It would be so annoying though if we got rid of social media, because it took me years of everyone saying, if you want to do all this stuff, you got to learn social media, and then I had to figure out how to do Twitter and everything.
Right. And then I think the other solution is a lot harder, and I think it just actually requires a lot of people to. I think social media allows you to just kind of be on your own to some extent. Mm-hmm. And I think after that, we have to work more cohesively within scenes, and people got to pump up each other's works,
Communism.
But speaking of pumping up each other's work, Indiepocalypse pretty much just pumps up people's work all the time. It's exclusively what it does. And I recommend that you buy it. If you go to indiepocalypse.com, you can purchase it there. On my own website, I have it there now. If you want to get a physical edition of it, you can go to indiepocalypse.com/tapes, and you get a copy of Indiepocalypse inside a cool little cassette case on a USB stick, of course, because they're games, they're not music. There's not Indiepocalypse is not. Though it would be fun if I had an issue that was all like C64 games, and I did put them on an actual cassette.
Wow,
that'd be kind of neat. But. No, that is not what it is. You can also subscribe to Patreon, indiepocalypse.com/Patreon. You can, if you want to be included into a future issue of Indiepocalypse, it's easy to submit your game at indiepocalypse.com/submit. It's pretty much always open. That's it, I think. I don't think I have anything else to say. that's the end of the show. Adrian, Mark, thank you both for being here. Sure, you were not here, but I also would like to officially say thank you for being here. Glad to have you all on the show. Glad to have you all making games. And, it's fun. I like it. I like doing this.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
With that said, I'm going to think about what I'm going to eat, and I'm going to say goodbye, everyone.